over here. Put your hand down. Call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. We're obviously a little tiny bit late getting started today. I think it's fair to say that the weather and other things have interrupted us today a little bit, so we're a couple of minutes behind. But we'll call the meeting to order. The first thing is to accept the motion for the agenda as presented, as well as any additions. Moved by Councillor Stoyles. It is seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. All in favor? Motion carried. We will move now then into the first item. That would be the minutes of our public meeting of November 16th. A motion to accept the minutes as presented, moved by Councillor Aker. It is seconded by Councillor Lane. Are there any errors or omissions from the meeting of November 16th? Errors or omissions? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Business arising from the minutes of November 16th, Councillor Lane.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to reference minute 842.
842?
Yeah, that was the North East Avalon Joint Council. And just to advise Council that I did attend that meeting on the 17th in Flat Rock.
Yep.
Mr. Ken Kelly was there representing Eastern Waste Management, and he, I guess, gave a little update as to how things are going, where they're going with this. Yep. And we all know that we had an announcement about the tipping fees going up. Certainly some of the communities I can gather outside of the metro area are not necessarily going to be too happy about that. And in general, I think it's fair to say that most of the communities there involved with the Northeast Avalon are still very displeased with Eastern Waste Management, how this whole thing is rolled out. Mm-hmm. And I guess the plan for the new board, they do not agree with the makeup. It's felt that St. John's has 38% of the population, and therefore they should have 38%, or I guess in that case 40% on the board. 8 of 20 councillors, not 10 of 20 councillors. They have a concern. They've brought that forward. I think they intend to be taking further action on that. Mm-hmm. Again, not happy with the tipping fees. Nothing resolved in terms of transfer stations, and there's a whole lot of communities out there that really don't have things in place yet. They're not sure how it's going to be in place. Cost is obviously a big factor. Transportation is a big factor. So I think it's fair to say that this is far from resolved, far from over, and there's a lot of unhappy campers out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you much for that. Any other items coming from the minutes of November 16th? No other items from the minutes of November 16th. We'll move on. Proclamations and presentations, we have none today. We do have a correspondence here addressed to the Mayor coming from the Minister of Finance, Tom Marshall. This is in reference, obviously, to the poppies situation with the goods and services tax. I don't know whether there's any comment or anything anybody wishes to make on that. That's the only correspondence that I see. Our first committee today is going to be Community Services in Councillor Walsh's. I don't see it. Oh, maybe I'm missing something here. Hold on. I've got the one here from Children's Wish, which is their Ministry of Granting Wishes for Children Coping with Life-Threatening Illnesses. Anybody with a comment on that? And, of course, we have a letter from Minister Kathy Dunderdale here, and this is in reference to the Provincial Purple Ribbon Campaign. We do have the ribbons. We put them on display, I think, and then we have the ones that are the magnetic ones that actually go on your car that we put out on display out at the main lobby here. And I see others have a purple ribbon on, but I don't have one of those yet. I don't know where they came from, so somebody will have to tell me how to get one of those. I got those at work. Yeah. Any other comment or question about that correspondence? I believe that's all of it. We'll move on then to Community Services Committee report. Councillor Lane.
Yes, Your Worship. First item here, the committee is recommending approval to be given to issue the final installment for the 2010 operating grant in the amount of $203,000 to the Grand Concourse Authority. And of course, the Grand Concourse Authority, we work in partnership with them with a lot of work on our trail systems, our parks, our open spaces. We've had an ongoing partnership with them, and this is just the final grant for 2010, so I move that we would authorize that.
Moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Question or comment? All those in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
Next item, Your Worship, we again, this one here relates to the Grand Concourse Authority, and outside of our, I guess, our normal trail work and open space work, they partnered with us as well in the installation of the artificial turf at the Team Guju complex, soccer turf, and so we are recommending approval to issue a check in the amount of $269,272 plus HST, and that represents the amount owing the Grand Concourse for their work on the artificial turf. And I so move.
Moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Next item, Your Worship, as part of Council's ongoing commitment to scouting and Girl Guides and so on in the city of Mount Pearl, we have a number of groups throughout the city. We make an annual contribution to the Camp Morristown. Camp, I think, is up there in the Foxtrap area, I believe. And that's where scouting groups throughout the region and club groups go, including all of the Mount Pearl scouting groups. So we make an annual contribution of $500 towards the maintenance and upkeep of that facility. So I would move that we would do the same again this year, amount of $500.
Moved, seconded. All in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Next item, Your Worship, committee is recommending approval to provide a $600 donation in support of the 2011 Family Fun event being put off by the Mount Pearl Citizens Crime Prevention Committee. And again, this is an annual event that they do in the city to promote crime prevention in their city, and we contribute to this on an annual basis. So I'm recommending approval, Your Worship.
Moved, seconded. All in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Next item, Your Worship, is an FYI for Council and certainly the general public, that the Mount Pearl Lions Club will be holding 55th, wow, hard to believe, 55 years, annual Santa Claus Parade. It's taking place this Saturday, December 4th, and it'll be the normal route. It'll be departing at 10 a.m. From the Mount Pearl Senior High and Intermediate School parking lots, proceeding along Ruth Avenue and Park Avenue and ending at Mount Pearl Square. And along the route, food items can be donated to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. That's our local food bank. And also you could donate loonies and cash as well to the community food sharing. And basically, if anybody, it's getting a bit late now, but if there was anybody who wanted to enter a float or enter into the parade now as a last-minute thing, certainly they could contact Gerald Coombs with the Mount Pearl Lions Club. And certainly we want to acknowledge the Mount Pearl Lions Club. They've been doing this for years. It's a great community service that they provide. It's always a great parade and great fun, and everyone looks forward to it. So we thank them for that. Next item, Your Worship, is another FYI. It relates to our annual tree lighting ceremony here at City Hall, out by the gazebo in the park. It's going to be occurring Saturday as well at 6 p.m. And we're encouraging the public to come out and take part in this annual event. There's going to be two choirs participating this year. It's going to be a choir from Mary Queen of the World Primary School, as well as the O'Donnell High School Choir. And we'll be doing the usual, singing Christmas carols, lighting the tree, there'll be hot chocolate and so on, and we certainly encourage all members of the general public to get out and take part in that event. You okay now? Okay.
It's all right. It's all right.
You want to take the call? That's all right.
That's all right. That's all right. You can get him about not being dressed properly for the meeting
that's right.
after.
Within our new protocol, I am, Your Worship.
Oh, you're not? Got to
Yes,
work
I
hard.
am. Ties are cancelled.
Oh, when did that happen?
We cancelled that. You missed that meeting.
I must have.
Yeah, we cancelled the whole
I'd have challenged
tie.
that.
We cancelled the whole tie thing, right?
I'd have challenged that.
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay, the next one, Your Worship,
Item
we're
7,
recommending using the services of Eastern Audio
Yeah.
for our tree lighting event. And their bid is $508.50, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Next item, Your Worship, again, it's just an FYI for Council, that the provincial government, and this has been in the media, I think, for a while now, under the leadership of our MHA, Dave Denine, as part of his role in the voluntary sector, they've launched a new program and website. It's called the Who Cares campaign, and it's put in place to celebrate the province's volunteer sector who are making a difference in our community. And it's actually contained on the provincial government website. People can go in and view that, and we certainly encourage people to do so. And I think it's a great initiative by the province, and certainly we know here in the city of Mount Pearl the importance of volunteers, because we have so many great volunteers and volunteer groups in our city, and so kudos to the province for recognising them. And the last item, sir, on the Community Services meeting there was to recognise the Mount Pearl Marlins Swim Club.
Yep.
And at the Fall Classic Swim Meet, they actually had a very successful meet. It was held on November 6th to the 8th. The team placed second overall. There was 8 club records and 2 provincial records broken by Mount Pearl Marlin swimmers. And this has just been an ongoing thing with the Mount Pearl Marlins. Every time they seem to be involved in any of these competitions, they always fare very well. So congratulations to them.
Hear, hear.
And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. You might as well stay on your feet.
I will indeed.
Because Corporate Services is your own committee, and I do believe Councillor Stoyles will act as alternate today. Carry on.
Okay, Your Worship. First item for Corporate Services, committee is recommending approval of a $2,000 grant to the DARE program, and provision has been made for this in the 2010 budget. This has been something that this city has been supporting now for the last number of years. And of course, the DARE program is a drug awareness program in which which is facilitated by the RNC, and they do this in our elementary, I think, and intermediate schools and so on. And it's to teach kids to say no to drugs, basically. Mm-hmm. It's a fabulous program. I have 2 DARE graduates in my home, and I can say that they do a tremendous job. Constable Nixon, who happens to be a Mount Pearl resident, has been very much involved in this over the years. They do a great job, and we're very pleased to support it in the amount of $2,000. So I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. All those in favour? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Next item, Your Worship, the committee recommends approval of the request from our social club, a donation of $2,000. And again, this is an annual commitment that we make to the city's social club for our staff.
Yep. And
they utilize that for various events throughout the year, whether it be staff barbecues or Christmas party or whatever the case might be, family events and so on. And it's just something we do, I guess, over and above, just to acknowledge the great work of our staff. So pleased to bring that forward for approval. I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favour? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, we have the October payment register, and we're recommending approval for the register totaling $3,613,903.35. And actually, we don't need an actual motion to approve. We're just presenting it for the information of council. Next item, Your Worship, and I hate to do this with a piece of paper here. We're trying to go paperless, but 1 piece of paper and 2 reports is not bad, I suppose.
Not bad, I suppose.
Anyway, it's invoices for approval.
Yep.
And the one that you actually have here on your iPad, there's a separate file there because we had to modify it. So the updated invoices for approval now totals $4,670,007.11. And I just want to point out that I guess the big change to what was there originally is the harbour cleanup invoice, totaling over $1.8 million. And we still have, in terms of that invoice, this still does not It represents the payment of everything that we had committed to, as well as for the overrun which occurred. But unfortunately, the bad news here is that we're not yet finished. We're going to be looking at possibly another $1 million bill to pay once we get all the numbers reconciled, because we've been informed by the City of St. John's that now they've had an additional overrun. So we started off, I think, at $95 million originally, $93 million. Then it went up to 140 something, 149, and now it's 154. Is that right? Or 164 now? Went to 154, and now we've been told it's gone to 164. So this is the third time now that we've had overruns and so on. Unfortunately, it's really out of our control, and we did commit to paying our fair share, so I guess we're going to have to pay our share of that overrun, and so unfortunately there's going to be more to come. And the last item I have here, Your Worship,
I'm
is...
sorry, I got to call the question on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, I moved
it is
before.
moved and
I
seconded.
moved the,
All those in
moved the
favor?
invoices.
Invoices for approval. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Okay. And the final item, Your Worship, just to notify Council and the public as well, as part of our ongoing commitment to employee safety and to community safety, we are now implementing within the city a new reverse parking policy. This is not something that's new. There are there's a lot of organizations who already have this policy in place, and basically what we're saying is that for all of our staff, and we're encouraging our contractors, it'll be part of our contractors management program, and certainly visitors to our facilities as well, we will be utilizing signage and information sessions and so on to try to get people to actually back into the parking spots and drive out. From a safety perspective, that's something that we're going to be doing with our staff, and we will be encouraging the public as well. And so I'll just bring this forward now for the information of Council.
Thank you, sir,
And
very
that's it,
much.
Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Economic Development, Communication and Tourism. We're going to Councillor Stoyles.
Yes, Your Worship, I just have one item, and that's we're proposing a study for Municipal Avenue for seniors, potential seniors housing, and Shepherd Case has put a bid in of $2,000, and we're recommending, this is non-budget item, and we're recommending to go ahead with this. This is something that we've talked about in our plans over the past number of years to look at senior housing and affordable housing, and I so move.
It is moved and it is seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
That's all for me, Your Worship.
That's the only item. Engineering Services, Councillor Aker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. First item we have is a transfer within the capital budget of the Engineering Services Department. $15,000 had been allocated to the Granger Road HOA project. That stands for the hands-off automatic, and basically it's a bunch of gears, but essentially they looked at the priority of the expenditures for this year, and the retrofit of the Admiralty Wood Lift Station they find to be more critical this year, so we're requesting Council's approval to transfer $15,000 from the Admiralty Wood Lift Station to the Granger Road HOA, and I so move.
It is moved, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Second item, Your Worship, is approval from Council is sought for approval of a progress claim. It's number one, I believe the only claim, to Platinum Construction, the amount of $89,088.80. This is work associated with a collapsed storm sewer, which happened, I believe, on Commonwealth Avenue. It happened in August. There was no public tender for this. The work was considered to be an emergency. It had to get done. We had traffic tied up all over the place. The road was collapsing. So the job is now complete. Our engineers are recommending it, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
That's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
No, I've got.
No,
Okay, that's dropped. That's it. We're up to Planning and Land Use. Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just noticing, as Councillor Lane was talking about, he brought in only one sheet of paper. This report today would total 107 sheets of paper. Had we been under the old system, there'd be quite a few trees killed just to provide the
This
kits.
will be 107 sheets, yeah?
It'll be 107 sheets long. So I think
107 sheets time of all of us?
Yes.
So it's the planning department.
That's what I was going to say. So it would be 107 times 13.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot.
when you think the number of meetings we have and the committees as a whole, so I think we can forgive Councillor Lane for a single sheet of paper today.
I'm not sure we should let people know that.
Yes.
Crowd out in Cornerbrook and Kruger will not be happy.
A lot of environmentalists will be, however. So.
Here we go.
All right. The first item, Your Worship, has to do with Best Boy Productions Limited, and they have proposed a second building on the lot on 236 Park Avenue. City's in receipt of a development application by Best Boy Productions, proposing that they demolish the existing garage there and shed in the rear for the construction of a new building, 453 square meters. And essentially, it'll be a large movie studio associated with movie production offices at the front of the lot and the associated parking requirements here. The city did receive an application, or a development permit, I'm sorry. We issued a development permit in February of 2009 for Best Boy Productions to go ahead with their renovations. They did renovate the existing building up front, but they didn't actually proceed or continue with the demolition and the construction of the new building in the rear. In April of 2010, they made a development application for this proposed movie studio at the rear lot. And at the time, the proposal was for a building of only 278 square meters. However, in October of 2010, they submitted a revised detailed update and more detailed engineering drawings, illustrating that they would like to build a larger building there at 454 square meters. This submission, however, was turned down because it did not meet the city parking aisle standards, and the revised plans were requested from Best Boy Productions from the city. On November 15th, the most recent set of drawings were received, and revised parking aisle standards and a slightly more southerly location to the studio building, and the proposed studio is now a little smaller at 453.46 square meters. In terms of zoning, this subject property is located in the commercial general land use zone, and this proposed movie production studio is classified as communications. This is a permitted use in this particular zone. The proposal also meets the maximum building heights and the lot coverage requirements, and as such, it again meets these standards, and a development agreement for two buildings on one lot will also be required. There was some issue with respect to parking and would there be enough parking, but they have in their parking plans, they've outlined now 16 stalls, and this is deemed adequate for their parking from their perspective. The matter of providing some off-street parking, however, is still for further investigation here. You have to excuse me now because my reports are much longer, the background report, so I got to sift through all the digital sheets here. All right, getting to our recommendation. The Planning and Land Use Development Committee is recommending that the application by Best Boy Productions proposing to demolish the existing garage and shed in the rear of the existing building on 236 Park Avenue to build a new, larger movie studio at 453 square meters be approved, subject to the following conditions here. There are 7 outlined here, that they meet the St. John's Regional Fire Department conditions, Newfoundland Power conditions, final approval by the City Engineering Services Division, Finance Division requirements, inspection service requirements, planning service requirements, and of course the signing of a development agreement for 2 buildings on one lot. So you can see it's a very thorough process here to get such things approved. So I move this recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Lockett, seconded by Councillor Dave Aker. Question or comment from anybody? I'm going to appeal to the CAO. My son is employed by Best Buy Productions. When in doubt,
Right.
leave it out, and they can do this without me having voted. Let the record show that I'm going to abstain from the vote on an issue of conflict of interest. But let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. Do you know what's going on over there?
Fill us in. We'd love to hear.
They have a major, successful international television show, a children's show that they produce over there, called Mickey the Talking Dog. And it's all done with real animals, and it's all done with dubbed voices, so they can do it in any language in the world. And I think they're broadcasting it in 16 countries. They're starting a new production over there to do 26 television shows that are going to be run on, I believe it's the Animal Planet channel. 26 shows called Animal ER, which is about pets having to be taken into emergency rooms and things like that. It's a docudrama. Well, that's what my son's doing over there. That's why I can't vote. So they're proving themselves to be a fairly successful company. They're doing really well. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and we should encourage that. That's a different kind of business for Mount Pearl to have.
Indeed.
And the fact that it's expanding and growing is a good thing. You know? All right. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with yours truly abstaining.
All right, the next item here, Your
For
Worship,
conflict of interest, so said the CAO.
deals with the St. John's Urban Region proposed regional plan amendments. The city received a letter on October 29, 2010 from Plan Tech Environment regarding a number of regional plan amendments for the municipalities of Torbay, Flat Rock, Holyrood and Witless Bay. And the amendments related to changes from rural to urban designation in these particular municipalities. The Director of Planning and Development for the city, Mr. Yevchek, however, contacted Plan Tech November 9th looking for some clarification on the proposed amendments. The city received the map amendments, but no written text to support the plan or the map amendment. So again, questions were asked, and one of the questions that our director posed was, changing this land from rural to urban, did that mean that in all cases the land would now be serviced with municipal water and sewer services? We received a response, the city received a response on November the 18th, indicating that there's no proposed changes to the policies, the overall policies of the regional plan, but essentially they wanted this to go through because the changes to the municipal plans, they wanted them to be in compliance with the regional plan designation. So that was the spirit of this particular letter here. Our director advised that the amendments will increase, while they will increase the urban footprint for the region, they do not have any significant impact on the city of Mount Pearl, and as such, the committee is recommending that the city respond to the Department of Municipal Affairs and indicate that the city has no objections to these amendments, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Okay, just give me a second here now as I
Move through all these maps
sift
that
through
are attached to this now.
40 pages that are here. Okay, the next item, I think I'm on the right one here.
Rescinding of the
Yes,
order?
good.
Yep.
1.5 Wyatt Boulevard.
Yeah.
There was an order issued to 1.5 Wyatt Boulevard. At this particular location, they had poured a foundation, but didn't proceed with construction there, so there were some safety concerns. So an order was issued requiring some backfilling and the erection of a fence to ensure that no young people could fall into the structure there. The committee has been advised that that work has been carried out, the backfilling has taken place, the fence has been erected. So the department is recommending that this order be rescinded, and the committee supports this, and as such we're recommending that the order that was issued to the property at 1.5 Wyatt Boulevard be rescinded, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, has to do with the Municipal Plan Amendment number 79, 2010, and Development Regulations Amendment number 205, 2010, and this deals with the property at 835 Black Marsh Road. And this came about as a result of a development amendment application from Rockmount Properties, Incorporated, and they wish to develop 3 buildings there, 42 dwelling units per building, at this location, again, 835 Black Marsh Road. But the application is not permitted according to the highway commercial zoning for the property. And in order to accommodate this proposal or a similar proposal, the property would need to be redesignated from highway commercial to residential and rezoned from commercial highway to a residential zone, such as apartment or the residential high-density land use zone. As required under the Urban and Rural Planning Act, the city advised the public that a briefing session was to be scheduled, and it was dated for September 1st. We did have some written submissions and verbal submissions, so we went ahead with this briefing session. It was a good discussion, very well attended. And as a summary of the commentary that took place at that particular meeting, essentially the main theme was the management of stormwater. That appeared to be the major underlying concern for the residents that came out to that particular briefing session. And some of the main concerns that were expressed, one was the vegetation, the concern that if the vegetation was removed from 835 Black Marsh Road, that would somehow enhance or increase the runoff because of the vegetation absorbing some of the rainwater. The second had to do with the design of detention or retention ponds. Concern was expressed that they may not always be watertight, and that this may also result in increased flow into the Waterford River through the soils. The issue of past infilling of the Waterford River was raised, and it was concerned that past infilling along the Waterford River diverted more water to the north toward the Topsail Road area. The other issue dealt with runoff of water, and the sentiment was that over the past few years, they have seen an increased amount of runoff. Another issue was raised, dealt with overpopulation. The concern what if they brought in, if they built these buildings with 126 units, that would result in increased pedestrian traffic that could be problematic along Topsail Road there if they wish to use, the Forest Avenue bridge. And the final one had to do with the overall increased vehicular traffic in the area. As I said, the majority of the public commentary related to storm water management matters and related to the area and the Waterford River Basin. But since 2000, the city has in place a zero net runoff policy, which essentially means that post-development storm water flows shall not exceed the pre-development flows. So we use mechanisms for detention ponds, for example, and it has to be developed in such a way so that we don't increase the water flows into the Waterford River. With respect to landscape, the city has a minimum landscaping requirement, and the combination of landscaping requirements and, again, on-site stormwater management measures should not increase runoff during peak flows into the river. The issues with respect to the infilling in the Waterford River is not relevant to this particular property, as this property is not located within the Waterford River floodplain, but is in fact on the other side of Topsail Road, so it's not adjacent to the river. The concern raised by those in attendance with respect to increasing runoff from the general urbanization of the Waterford River watershed is not a matter that would be addressed specifically for this particular proposal. Should this amendment be approved and should the development proposal, as was stated above, continue, site-specific stormwater measures would be required to be put in place so as not to add further stormwater to the Waterford River. Again, this property is currently designated that some development could go there. So, it's designated for development in any event, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, whatever goes there, they will have to meet our water management requirements to ensure that we do not increase any runoff, additional runoff into the Waterford River. The comment about the population in the area, well, when we looked at this, the area has sidewalks along the north side of Topsail Road, and of course Black Marsh Road is being upgraded as well in the next several years, and we'll have sidewalks there as well. So these sidewalks can accommodate the number of residents who may wish to walk along these roads, and if residents do decide to walk down to the Forest Avenue pedestrian bridge, the bridge again has the capacity to accommodate these pedestrians. With respect to the increase of traffic in the area, again, the development is no doubt is going to add traffic to this particular location along Topsail Road and Black Marsh Road, as will any other urban development that occurs on this particular site. But, it was noted that Topsail Road has 4 lanes on the south side of the property, and Black Marsh Road has a 2-lane roadway on the north side of the site, and both roads have the capacity to accommodate the development that's being proposed here. The upgrade of Black Marsh Road will also manage traffic flows more effectively in this area when the upgrading is done. As a result of these conditions, considerations, Your Worship, Council was satisfied that the amendment is in the best interest of the city, and once approved would allow Council the authority to consider an apartment proposal which would provide much-needed seniors housing in Mount Pearl. The proposed amendments were subsequently forwarded to the Department of Municipal Affairs for review and provincial release, and the Department of Municipal Affairs has released the proposed amendments from provincial review, and as per the Urban and Rural Planning Act, this amendment may now proceed to Council for adoption. Pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act, the Department recommended adoption of the amendment, appointment of a commissioner, and the setting of a date for the public hearing relating to this matter. So we will move to public hearing if this is approved here. Our committee as such, taking all this into consideration, is recommending that pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act, the adoption of the Municipal Plan Amendment number 79, 2010, and the Development Regulations Amendment number 205, 2010. Secondly, that we were recommending the appointment of Ernest Boone as Commissioner. And finally, we're recommending the holding of a public hearing for 7 p.m. on January the 11th, 2011, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Questions or comments? All those, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Lane. Councillor Lane.
Yes. Yeah, Your Worship, I'm just going to make a quick comment on this, because I know there's been some, controversy and concern and everything raised, but from how I understand it, because, you know, and I guess like us all, I'm not an engineer. None of us here around this, I can't say none of us, Mr. Lush is, but none of us politicians around here are engineers. So at the end of the day, when we look at any kind of development of this nature or any other nature, we have to depend on the advice of our staff in terms of what is possible, what measures can be taken to mitigate against the concerns which have been brought forward to us. And we have to depend on their advice. That's not saying that we don't have a role to ask questions and so on if something doesn't seem quite right to us and get clarification, and we do. We did it in this case. We do all the time. But at the end of the day, we have an area here on Black Marsh Road, as I understand it, that regardless if we approve this development, if we turn this development down, the land is still zoned for development. So the question is, what do you put there, or what could you put there that's going to alleviate every single concern that's been raised in the public hearing? And, you know, looking at it, I really don't know that there's anything that you could propose other than status quo. I mean, that's really the only thing that, from what I can gather, the commentary I read when I went through the report and comments made by citizens and so on, the only thing that really totally satisfies 100% of the concern, you know, in the systems, and that it would be totally fail-proof and so on, is to say, well, we'll have nothing there. So that means we don't develop that piece of land. We don't develop anything on the other side of Black Marsh Road, up the Synergy property and so on, the Dooley property. We don't develop anything else or intensify anything along Tops of Road. And I think, you know, that, like, that's just not realistic. I mean, we've had lots of areas throughout the city where at one time or another there might have been woods there and bogs and trees, whatever was there. And yeah, it was not as much traffic. It was quieter. You know, there wasn't as many people around. It wasn't as busy. Had no impact. It was great. You could look out at the woods, but the reality of it is that we are an urban centre, and we do have to develop the land that we have. So, you know, from my perspective, as long as we are taking every reasonable measure that we can take to mitigate against the concerns that the people have, and if that's detention ponds and piping and whatever else has to be done to mitigate against those concerns, then I really think that, you know, the responsible thing to do for all the citizens is to approve it. And reading the report and everything I've read on it, I think that, you know, staff have looked at all the issues and are telling us that through engineering design and detention ponds, everything else, that they're going to be able to mitigate against this. So for that reason, I'm going to support the committee.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Councillor Aker?
I have a question, and maybe it's for Director Lush, but the water that normally would have been stored naturally on this property, when this property is developed in these three buildings, how will it be stored? Will it be some large holding tank in the parking lot? Or, because obviously I don't think we're going to build a detention pond purely for this particular building, but would it be underground storage basically to hold back the water as it flows into the Waterford River?
We're looking at a detention pond actually on that particular site, but it depends on the actual, I guess, the functionality of what the developer had proposed. A detention pond would suit the purposes, which is my preference right now is a pond. It's easier to maintain, and it gives you a visual feature. So,
But we're a little bit out in front of it, are we not?
sure. But I guess it doesn't usually have to look like a pond. I know in Calgary they make baseball diamonds, and the baseball diamond in the storm becomes a stormwater detention area. So it doesn't need to look like a pond.
No.
Even though
No.
it is a pond, it doesn't need to look like a pond.
Yeah.
So people get to use it, and it's easier to maintain.
No, my concern here is that the recommendation today is that we are going to adopt this municipal plan amendment, and that we're going to appoint a commissioner, and that we're going to hold a public hearing. So people with other concerns and other questions about this will have yet another opportunity, publicly, to address this. Yes. Going to the point Councillor Lane is making about the level of due diligence being undertaken to make sure that what we do is appropriate, you know, and you know, so that work on a detention pond, etc., comes later. That's what I meant by we're out in front of it. Any other question or comment? If not, I'll call it. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item, just want to make sure I'm on track here.
Yeah, you got a ways to go now.
All right, the tire storage. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think one of the things we're going to have to do is with planning in particular, because there's so much documentation attached, each individual item, you're going to have to be able to go back to the agenda and grab, because
Right.
this is
That's sort of a sub-agenda.
yeah, a sub-agenda, yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to
okay.
have to arrange to do that.
That's a good idea. All right, this one here is,
I just screwed up,
you're out of it?
just like,
Regional Tire Sales, Atlantic Incorporated, tire storage,
yep.
is a discretionary use application for 54 Clyde Avenue. City is in receipt of the application from this company to occupy approximately 930 square meters, about 10,000 square feet, of indoor space at 54 Clyde Avenue for the purpose of storing up to 8,000 new tires at this location. The property is within the light industrial land use zone. The storage of rubber in bulk is considered a general industrial use. As a result, this is considered a discretionary use application involving public notification. As per usual, a notice of the application was published in the Telegram on Saturday, November 6th. It was circulated to 32 properties and business owners within a 150-meter radius of the proposed business. And notice was also sent out to our department heads, Chamber of Commerce, MHA, as well as posted on our website. The normal stuff, again, to alert the public of any changes we plan to make. Again, to your point, it's a very thorough process here, you know, and we give people the opportunity to participate and bring their concerns forward, you know, all along the way here.
Yeah, well, nobody had any problems with this.
No, we didn't have any representation.
It's indoor storage, for one thing.
Right, prior to the deadline of November 22nd, and as a result, the information session was cancelled. Again, we went through all the internal and external reviews. The recommendation here now, the Planning and Land Use Development Committee recommends approval of the application and issuance of a development permit to Regional Tire Sales Atlantic Incorporated to occupy approximately 929.03 square meters, about 10,000 square feet, and to stress your point, your worship, of indoor space at 54 Clyde Avenue for the storage of up to 8,000 new rubber tires, subject to 5 conditions outlined here. Again, St. John's Regional Fire Department requirements, our inspectors' requirements, the Finance Division requirements, engineering services conditions, and of course the Planning and Development Department requirements. And I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried. These are new tires too, right?
Yes,
That they're storing.
new
This is not a tire storage facility for the recycling of. Okay.
Right, brand new tires.
Yeah.
And again, it's indoor.
Yes, it is. Okay. Question called. Motion is carried.
Okay. The next one is a billboard application. Patterson Outdoor Advertising, on behalf of Donovan's Home Limited, for the installation of a billboard on 1269 Topsail Road. It's interesting, the map and that is attached here, but we already had an application for a billboard at this particular location, and the Planning and Development Land Use Committee, with recommendations from the department, you know, accepts this. So our committee is recommending approval of the development application for this particular billboard sign at 1269 Topsail Road, subject to the following conditions. Conditions of the Department of Fisheries and Ocean. The receipt of a copy of a permit to alter a body of water, the river system in that particular area, to be issued by the Department of Environment and Conservation prior to any building permits being issued. Our city inspection requirements, our finance division requirements, receipt and approval of a scaled site plan by city illustrating a proposed location of the billboard, including its size and its setbacks from property boundaries, and the proposal meeting conditions 14.2 Schedule F of the sign and advertisement regulations of the City of Mount Pearl Development Regulations 1988. Again, a very thorough process here, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. The applicant before this, on this, did the applicant before this, the expiry time expire because they couldn't get a permit? We were dealing with regulatory and amendment matters? No?
Your Worship, I understand that they just didn't proceed after getting the approval from council.
Okay, this was
And-
this was approved for another developer earlier.
Correct, and actually,
Okay, that's
that
what I
one
was-
was a
all right.
three-sided sign. This one is one pylon with a double-faced sign.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or comment? It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item here is the development permit list for November 13th to November 26th, 2010.
Yep.
We have three three permits at the time. One is BLC Contracting, a second is Donovan's Irving, and the third one is Budden Morris. So I move that these be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. All in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
And the last item here, Your Worship, is the building permits for the time period of November 13th to November 26, 2010. During this time, residential building construction totaled $242,000. Commercial building construction during the same time totaled $60,000, bringing the total for this time period to $302,000, and I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And that is it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
And that is it. Want to note in the agenda that we also have the minutes of the special meeting that were held on November 23rd, which have to be adopted as well. I'm looking at it here. Both Mayor Sims and Councillor Stiles were absent at the time. The special meeting was convened, and this is in reference to the changeable message sign amendment. I'm assuming that the Deputy Mayor will be bringing this forward as part of a planning procedure. Deputy Mayor, if you would.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council was advised that the Department of Municipal Affairs will not register the noted amendment as requested pursuant to S23, Section 1 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act. These types of signs are not permitted within 100 meters of highways owned and maintained by the Department of Transportation and Works, as provided by Section 3, Section 5, the other sections outlined there of the Highway Sign Regulations, made pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act. It also prohibits such signs on other highways within 300 meters of an intersection with the Department of Transportation and Works highway. Furthermore, the Department has requested that any proposed changeable text signs located beyond 100 meters from either Route 1 or Route 2 and future extension of the Team Guzhou Highway, where it abuts the City of Mount Pearl boundary, but visible from those highways, shall be referred to the Department of Transportation and Works for a recommendation, and such recommendations from this department will be binding on the Council. The Department of Transportation and Works has also suggested that they wish to ensure that signs are only erected within sight of highways that do not create a distraction to drivers and consequently do not compromise traffic safety. Be resolved that approval be granted to amend the changeable message sign amendments as requested by the Department of Municipal Affairs. And I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Aker. Any question or comment? Did you see the new sign, that the new billboard that E.C. Boone's got up on Kenmount Road down by the Toyota Plaza area?
I have not.
Oh, it is fabulous.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, this is the wave of the future, right? And our planner is like, he's like the Grinch. He's like Scrooge. And he's really detailed. But anyway, we're going to get it done.
I'd like to use the word thorough to make sure that all regulations are followed.
You can't have any fun with these bureaucrats at all. It's great. We're gonna call the question. Nobody got any comments, insults, anything? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? The motion is carried. We are up to new business. We started on my left at the last meeting. We'll start over here. Councillor Aker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, and I hope my colleagues will join me, throw out a congratulations to the provincial government on the Muskrat Falls deal with Nova Scotia. I think it's fantastic from 2 points of view. First of all, the government is trying to take us to 98% green energy in terms of our electrical consumption, and also is opening up a corridor that basically, in effect, well, let's call a spade, it bypasses Quebec, so we can perhaps somewhere down the road get to the markets in New England. I think it's a great deal, and for a city like ours, you know, that on a very, very small scale, we believe green energy is really important, you know, in terms of our mandate. I think we got to give a kudos to the provincial government, and of course, and thank Premier Williams. I think it's a wonderful legacy that he's developed himself. He's a scrapper and a fighter, and he's certainly been a wonderful statesman for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And perhaps, Your Worship, could we send congratulations, perhaps, to the government or on the Muskrat Falls
We
deal?
will do that. Yes.
Right? I think that'd be a nice little honor, and I think we can all live with that legacy and hold our heads proud. The next item is a small one. 2 Fridays ago, myself and Councillor Lane and Councillor Walsh attended the Mount Pearl Soccer Association's Hall of Fame inductee. Mr. Bob Wood and Mr. Martin Batterson were inducted, 2 fine fellows. And the success of today's soccer association, the seed of that was sown many, many years ago. And I think by honoring these 2 gentlemen, Mr. Wood and Mr. Batterson, I think basically it shows the connection between the present and
Absolutely.
the past. And my final comment is on the H.J. Bartlett Senior Blades. 2-1 over CBN Friday night, 1,100 people at the Glacier.
Fabulous.
Now that's economic development, Councillor Stoyles. And they're now 8-0, I think it is, or they were 8-0 after that game. I think they've won a couple more, so...
They were 8-0 after that game.
Haven't lost
And we might be bringing in congratulations the way this is going at every council meeting, and I say bring it on, right? You know what I mean, right? Heard a baby.
Well, they gotta get a couple of interleague games now, if you will, or extra league games, with that crowd of savages on the West Coast, right?
There you go.
We need Deer Lake and we need the Caribous and a couple of rounds with them
Yes.
to see where they stand, right? No, it does not. That's
usually,
part of the
no,
problem.
No.
Right.
That's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Got us going on the hockey. See,
I
Councillor Stolz, we know you loves hockey.
love hockey. I don't even think I ever attended a game.
Well, you were supposed to drop a puck for me, so we're not going to forget that. You let me down, as they say.
Not going to happen.
All right.
Councillor Laker mentioned the Churchill Falls. One thing I wanted to mention was next week we're going to have our first woman
Premier? Yep.
And in Kathy Dundee, I'm assuming you're going to be sending a letter to her, congratulating her, and looking forward to working with her. And I'm certainly looking forward to working with her myself.
That's absolutely happening, yes.
And it is going to happen, so it's certainly history.
It is significant, actually. It's quite significant, and it's worthy of note.
It's certainly worthy of noting, and also I wanted to mention that, of course, we have the snow today, and as of tomorrow, parking regulations. I've heard ads all day on the local radio stations, and as of 1 o'clock, it starts. I think it's from 1
a.m.
until 7, and you can't park on our streets, or you will be ticketed. So I'm assuming the first week or so we'll be giving warnings out like we normally do every year, but we're asking people not to park, especially on a night like this.
I don't know. Our cops are pretty tough, man.
It's pretty bad.
They're like those Texas sheriffs down south. They brook no frivolous stuff at all. I don't know. Hopefully they give warnings for the week.
And the last thing I wanted to mention, Your Worship, is one of our staff, Blair Tilly's, lost his father, passed away.
Yes,
and I'd like
very
you to send off. I'm assuming you probably
That's already done,
have,
yeah.
And just wanted to mention that in public and pass on our sympathies to his family. I didn't know about it until Monday morning, and it was too late for me to make arrangements to attend the funeral. But I certainly want to pass on my sympathies to the family. Thank you, Your Worship.
Here. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Just a couple of issues, Your Worship. Just a question to Director Lush here in terms of our recycling program. Any sort of feedback on how that's going, and any positive, any negative, any...
Actually, no, first couple days we've
Yep.
received a lot of feedback. It's died off, but there's still feedback coming in. Probably the biggest question I would get is, can you use clear bags? In which we said we will accept a clear bag if we like you to move to a blue bag, so we can have consistent messaging in the future. And the second one will be pertaining to bi-weekly collection. Are we going to change it to weekly? What are we going to do? So the committee will be looking sometime around Christmas to make a decision, to make a recommendation if we should go forward with weekly or keep it at bi-weekly.
The take-up rates have been good.
Take-up rates have increased, actually significantly, considering that plastic and metal is mostly volume, not weight size. It's gone from, like, an average truck will take 3 tons, it's gone up to 4.5. So fairly significant increase considering you consider what the weight of your plastics would be compared
Yeah, it's very good.
to paper. So no, I'd say there's pretty good take-up in the program. A lot of just questions about different things can be recycled, but those would be the big ones. The clear bag, and is the program going to go to weekly or not?
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
My wife has 40 of those clear bags, so the papers. She told me she's got 40 of them, and I said, yes, you can use them. Keep doing with your paper what you did till they run out.
Right.
So that's going to take her the year. I just warned you.
No, the reason I brought it up, Your Worship, is that I was up to the recycling depot the weekend, and to my pleasant surprise, there was not another car to be seen up there, because usually there's quite a lineup. And I got to admit, I had probably 20 bags of recycling that have been saved up in my garage over the summer. And rather than go up with that, I just went up with 3 bags, because you can go into the front and just sort of drop them off, and you don't have to go into long lineup. Well, when I found that there was nobody in the lineup, I went through, and then I came back, got the remainder, and went up. And I said, this is unusual. I've never seen it this slow. And the comment from one of the workers there said, well, since we've brought in the recycling, the amount of recycling coming in has been reduced. So he indicated that now that the city can pick it up, that more people are just throwing out their recyclables for the city to take. So my question is, when it ends up down at the recycling, the regional waste management, the question was, well, even 8 cents. I'm assuming it's divided. It's taken care of down there, and if not, and I know this was raised when we brought out this campaign, I think we need to take on something to encourage more of our residents, to separate the recyclables from the other plastics. Otherwise,
We do. It's just automatic.
So, can you respond to that?
Scott, have you ran into any problems with it? Or?
I can speak not to St. John's. I can speak to how it works in general. For I guess the regional waste has a contractor that comes in and bids on the operating of the MRF, material recovery facility. They know, or someone makes a projection of what materials will come in. So they call them nickels. So they say how many nickels are going to come into the door. Every nickel, when they go give their price to bid, they look at how many nickels come in the door because they get to keep the recyclables, and that goes to offset the actual cost of recycling. I don't know that that's certain down here, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works, because the actual company does the recycling. They look at what the value of what the recycling is. That brings down their actual cost of sorting. So they make an assumption of so many nickel cans and bottles would go in, and then that will in turn lower the price of what they would charge us to sort the recyclables.
Right.
So, and as time goes on, it becomes more predictable. So when future tenders go out, you might see the price of actually the processing drop down, because they know that most of the nickel deposits are going, and that collector gets to offset their actual operating costs. That's how it generally happens. But I've never been involved in St. John's, but I know I've been involved with Scotia before. Every other recycling tender I've seen, that's how it operates.
I wonder, do we threaten a legitimate business enterprise with our program if, in actual fact, the green depots, for example, aren't getting
That was
the materials to come in? Are we taking what is a pretty good, fairly good business model from the private sector? Do we put it under threat? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting question. Councillor Stiles and
Back when this started, I think I brought this concern to the floor and asked the question, and everybody thought that I was out to lunch. But I certainly
would never think that.
My God, no.
I certainly
Dinner
felt that
meat.
it was going to be a major problem, and I think what people need to know too is that the schools gets 100%, and you can bring your recyclables to the depots, and they will hold for whichever school you like or whichever charity you like. A lot of charities got a number there, and you can bring it for whichever Crohn's and Colitis. All the charities around the province has
and churches.
And a lot of people bring it, but the schools are the only ones that gets the true 100%. So I've encouraged people over the years is if they have recyclables and they don't want them, the schools raise the money for different activities and different programs and everything. They donate. If they have anyone to donate it to, because the schools gets 100%, not that the churches and that don't benefit as well, but the schools gets 100%.
Councillor Lane.
Now we start the big discussion on this. But just for council's information as well, that my understanding of the way this works is that if you bring in a can, you buy a can, you're paying 8 cents, you're getting back 4 or 5. 5, is it? And 3 goes to, I think it's 5 that you get back if you bring it in.
Yes.
So 3 is actually going to the MMSB. The problem you have, though, is that it actually costs the MMSB something like 9 or 10 cents a can to get rid of it, to get it out of the island, to get it out of here. So they're actually taking a loss of about 5 or 6 cents for every can that people actually bring into the Green Depot. They're actually taking a loss on that can. So the only thing that keeps the MMSB sustainable and keeps their building going and their staff employed is the fact that there's only about maybe 20% or 10% of the population that are actually recycling. Because the people who take it and just bring it to the landfill, then they collect the 8 cents at the cash register and they don't give back anything. They get to keep the whole 8 cents. So that's where they make their profit. So the reality of it is that if they convince too many people to start recycling and bringing it in and cashing it in, they'll actually work themselves out of a job and out of existence.
It is from that perspective what the MMS does via, and I've argued it since the day I sat there. It is the most bizarre business model in the world that you get hoisted on your own petard. The more successful you are in taking all of these cans out of the landfill, the less profitable you become. So it's counterintuitive. It's counterproductive that they need a certain amount to stay into the market, in the environment. In reality, the concept is right, Councillor Lee, but your numbers are a little wrong. Over 75% of the beverage containers in the province are actually captured, do not go to the landfill and get recycled. It's around 26% that actually gets lost into the system, and that's the 8 cents. Well, when we're dealing with several hundred million cans a year, it ends up being a significant amount of money. But I just wonder about the green depots themselves. They are actually a private sector initiative that the MMSB pays them for this work, and I just wonder if we're successful. Are we does our business model trump theirs at some point? We need to watch that, I think.
Right. But I was also going to raise what Councillor Stoyles raised. I know at Mount Pearl Senior High School that recycling is done, money is used for in-school initiatives, and just a great opportunity now to promote one of the green initiatives that we've done at the school there, a significant landscaping initiative that's been undertaken along the Michener Avenue, where we've put in some beautiful berms and trees and significant landscaping there, and the hope is that that we're going to continue with it. This is the start now of an ongoing project. So, to Councillor Stoyles' point, if you have recyclables and you don't wish to wait in the lineup, you can go in through the door, drop them off, and staple onto it for whatever school or charitable organization.
Most of them will give you your card now with a number.
Right.
You just staple the number on there.
So it's all there. So and to Councillor Stoyles' point,
you can go in on your computer and check your account.
Yeah,
all
you get
that good
double.
stuff.
They double it.
Yeah.
So if you bring in, you get your little pink slip that you brought in $10.50. Well, the school would get $21.
Yeah, the school gets 100% recon.
Right.
And if you want to leave your name, you get a tax receipt from your charity, from church.
So I think we need to
It's a
go
good
that
thing.
well.
Yep. All right,
I'd like
sir.
to see more people do that. Anyways,
Next
I just
item.
want to bring it up.
Yep.
And the last one I want to raise, and I know we've been singing the praises of the Mount Pearl Senior Blades, and so deserved, but I don't want us to overlook the Mount Pearl Marks Work Warehouse Junior Blades. I'm affiliated with that particular organization.
Your coach, aren't you?
And no, I'm on the board of directors.
You're on the board of directors.
Yes.
You're
and,
in a huge conflict of interest, isn't he?
And I just want
Bragging
to highlight
about his own.
No, I'm not. They were in first place as of Sunday night. Unfortunately, we went down to defeat, but we are also having a very successful season. So I just want to highlight that both our seniors in City Division, both our seniors and our junior blades
Are doing well.
are doing fantastic.
That's
So I
great,
just
you
wanted
know.
to take the opportunity to bring it up.
Excellent,
And
excellent.
Sorry for the conflict. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Lane, new business.
Yes, Your Worship. Jeez, there's nothing left to talk about, sir.
No, why? They got it covered.
They pretty much do. No, there was 2 items I had there. The first one, I just wanted to make a note, just for the record, I guess, that originally back, I guess, about a month or 6 weeks ago or something, Council granted my approval to attend the Athletic Business Conference.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to actually, I should have been there now.
Right.
I never did register for it, so I just didn't go.
Okay.
So the minutes can reflect that if you wish.
All right.
other-
There was no expenditure of city funds anywhere?
There was no expenditure, zero.
Oh, okay.
Nothing. Not a dime.
It just didn't happen.
Just didn't happen.
That's unfortunate. Okay.
And the other issue, I wasn't going to raise this, but you raised it actually you mentioned it in your on your show today. So I said, well, he mentioned it on the show, I'm going to mention it because it kind of peeved me off. to be honest
Let
with
me
you.
guess. Let me
Let me
guess.
guess. What?
East-west.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it.
So it kind of, I got to say, it peeved me off. I listened to the verbal diarrhea down at the bunker on New Gower Street last night. I was watching it on TV, and of course, it was a wonderful little play. I think they were rehearsing for Republic of Doyle or something, trying to get a part. And Councillor Tilley brought up the issue about the meetings and Team Gouju, and then that led
You
Doc
can really
right
upset
into.
him. You can really upset him now because I've had a part.
There you go. And then that led Doc, of course, into his whole rant about the Team Gouju Highway and the city of Mount Pearl are not willing to pay their share and so on, and promoting that ongoing fallacy that we all know it is. And of course, then towards the end, Councillor Hanlon had to get up and say, you know, I really got to admire you, Mayor O'Keefe, for having the courage to bring up the A word again, right? Because of course he always throws the amalgamation into everything that doesn't go his way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just for the record, because I've heard him in the media prior to that, prior to the meeting he was on last week in 2 or 3 different media outlets talking about it, and saying that at some point in time he was thinking about coming back to the city of Mount Pearl and sitting down with the mayor in his office and trying to convince him that we should be paying for this highway. Mm-hmm. So, for one, I'm going to just state right from off the bat that, speaking for myself only at this point in time, that we made up our mind. I made up my mind, and I am not prepared, nor are any of us have been prepared, to spend Mount Pearl taxpayers' dollars on a provincial highway. It's just not going to happen. And it amazes me. The part that amazes me the most, though, is, you know, they're trying to deflect the issue onto the city of Mount Pearl, when the reality of it is the city of St. John's is looking at a $5 million deficit, and now they're talking about taking on an additional $750.
Don't get involved in their
Anyway, I'm getting involved in it now. So,
Not their
and
internal
they're taking
politics.
and they're going to take on $750,000, according to the mayor's estimates, to maintain a section of provincial highway, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is smacks of total incompetence. So I'm not prepared to go to our taxpayers to help pay for a mistake that those guys made, and my mind has certainly not changed, and I hope council's isn't either. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm done.
I'm done. All right. Well, I don't know that they made any mistake when it comes to the east-west, Councillor Lane. They made the decision that they wanted to do that. That's their expenditure of money, and as I've said, I'm never going to criticize them for that. That's their internal decision, what they want to do. The issue for us was originally, will we contribute to the capital cost of the highway? We said we would not. They came back after they agreed that they would actually fund the highway and build the highway, which they know the region needs, both federal and provincial government. They came back and asked if we would contribute to the maintenance. We believe that that initiative of having the city of St. John's take over a portion of what is a provincial highway is the first step in a download procedure that, quite frankly, a provincial government cannot be trusted to take advantage of whenever the opportunity presents itself. So there was a bigger issue than just St. John's and Mount Pearl. But they do whatever they want, and God bless them, that's fine. I do think it should be understood, though, at this point, that this is all over. There's no need for us to be debating this. There's no need for them to be fighting about it. There's no need. The mayor of St. John's now says that he would like to be able to toll it, and I think if it's a city street, if it's actually a city of St. John's road, then they should have the right to toll it. So let them toll it. I got no problem with that if that's the case. But if it's a funded federal provincial initiative belonging to the taxpayers of Newfoundland and Labrador and the taxpayers of Canada, then I don't think they have the right to toll it. And that just furthers our argument, proves our point. And to me, enough said on it, but I really do wish that for the sake of regional goodwill, if nothing else, that kind of verbal nonsense end. That's all that I would say. But anyway, no means no, and it's over. And there is one little item that I'm going to pass on because I want us to maybe take a look at it from the city of St. John's, though, in all honesty. I heard the mayor today make the comment, the mayor of St. John's make the comment, that their parking ban doesn't come in when hours comes in. Apparently it was promoted on the news today that the parking bans all start tomorrow night, and for St. John's, Mount Pearl, and Paradise. In actual fact, St. John's is not till January 5th, because they give a leeway, they argue, over the Christmas season. Had not thought of it, had not dawned on me, but is it something that we maybe should look at that would make sense? I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
Your Worship, we've talked about this before, and I think the reality of it is that we have said in the past, we have given direction to our municipal enforcement that during the Christmas season, if they go out on a Friday night or a Saturday night,
Exercise
and there's a
discretion.
gathering of cars and the lights are on and you can hear music, people are having a Christmas party, then they are to walk away or drive away.
Unless there's snow falling.
Well, I mean, unless it's a situation where they have no choice.
A
but
little discretion on
discretion,
their part.
right? So I think that could apply.
Absolutely. All right, all things being equal, then that concludes the meeting. Councillor Aker, move to adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.